me this opportunity.
All right, I've gone ahead and started the recording, and Tomas is going to be leading us today.
All right, so welcome everyone. I'm Tomasz Napierała, aka Zen, one of the colleagues of Sting On-Prem, and I'll be your host today, or tonight, in my time zone. So again, Sarah, thanks for this opportunity. So it's 23rd of March 2017, my daughter's 14th birthday, and our Kubernetes community weekly meeting. So just a quick reminder that meeting is recorded and the recording will be publicly available. So don't say anything yet that you will not be happy to see. So as far as I can see, we have surprisingly short agenda for today. I'm not sure if it's good or bad. So traditionally, first thing, it's the demo. So today we have a demo of Sourcegraph by Bian Liu. So Bian, are you ready to proceed with the demo?
Okay. Oh, I am ready. Sorry.
Okay. Just hit this big green button.
Okay.
Share screen. Yeah.
Everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I just want to start off by saying, thanks for having me. Really excited to present to you guys. Thank you so much for this Kubernetes. It's an awesome tool that we use and rely on every day, and it's great. So keep up the good work. So I thought I would just start out by kind of demoing Sourcegraph on a typical workflow. Just a kind of quick straw poll. I guess there's 33 people on this call, so maybe I won't do the straw poll. But for those of you who have seen Sourcegraph before, a lot of this will be familiar. For those of you who haven't, hopefully it'll be new and informative. So what I thought I would do is kind of walk through Sourcegraph as used on a typical code review flow, because that's something that you guys probably do a lot, is submit pull requests and review each other's code. So I found just a random pull request on the Kubernetes repository. This one adds retransmissions in service call by ED resource consumer library. I'm not sure what that means, but as someone who's completely new to the Kubernetes code base, I decided to kind of just jump in and see whether Sourcegraph could kind of help me understand what was going on there. So when I go to this pull request, one of the immediate questions I might ask is, what does this pull immediate method do? And if the server will cooperate, all right, not to worry, I have another pull request pulled up. So when I go to a pull request, one of the immediate questions I might ask is, what does this particular method do? Or what do these fields do? And oftentimes I'm too lazy to kind of like check out the code myself and jump to the definition in my IDE. So it's really helpful to be able to kind of hover over things and just at a glance read what it's doing based on the documentation. And if I want to, I can click on that, and that jumps me straight into this kind of code browser view that shows me exactly where that definition is in code. And so from here, I can kind of jump around. If I want to explore other parts of the code, I can jump to that definition. If I go back, I click on this. In the side panel, I get information. So this tells me the signature of the type or the method. It gives me the doc string in the right-hand panel. It lets me jump to definition, and it gives me a list of references. So I can see everywhere else in this repository that this particular symbol is used, and I can kind of page through these very quickly. And what's cool about this view is not only do I get references from inside this repository, I can actually see how other repositories make use of this particular symbol. So that's helpful if I'm just looking for kind of a wider range of usage examples to see if someone whose code I'm reviewing is using a particular type or method properly. But it also might be helpful if, say, I'm the maintainer of that repository and I'm making a change to a public API. I want to see how other people are using it and who would be impacted by the change. Does that make sense so far? Cool.
Yeah, sure. I think that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what this does is, I'm not sure how many of you have worked at Google before, but there's a tool inside Google called Google Code Search that kind of gives this IDE-like functionality in your web browser. It makes it so you don't have to check things out to your local development environment. You can just view things and search for things in the web browser. And what this kind of does is it brings that functionality to all the code in the world, not just the code that's inside Google. It makes it accessible to all programmers. And so a couple of ways in which we think this would be useful is, number one, if you're a maintainer of this repository, you probably spend a lot of time reviewing code. And what often ends up happening on large teams, at least in my experience, is that you reach the point where you've kind of written a lot of code, and so you're kind of the owner of a lot of code. And then as more people come onto the project, you become less the writer of code and more just the reviewer of pull requests. And what that means is you have less fun on the job, and also it often means that some of your best developers are spending all their time reviewing other people's code as opposed to writing it themselves. And so we found that the integration with GitHub pull requests is very helpful for speeding up that process and making it so that people can quickly understand what a piece of code is doing. And on the flip side, to more novice users of the code, people like me who are completely new to this repository and just want to click around, I can just easily jump into the code and kind of get a sense of the structure and relationships without having to, check it out to my local development environment, get it all set up in IDE and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the lightning fast overview of Sourcegraph. Are there any questions I can answer?
So I have a question, like a practical one. So I'm not familiar with that. This is, to be honest, the first time I see that, and it looks to be very useful. But on the practical side, do we need to do anything to have this enabled on Kubernetes repositories? And how it is implemented? Is it a Chrome extension or some local stuff? How does it work?
Yeah, so there's nothing you need to do for the Kubernetes repository. There's a couple of performance issues that you saw earlier that we're trying to debug right now, and Kubernetes is one of the larger Go open source repositories out there. But once we get those fixed, it should just work automatically. For the integration with GitHub pull requests, that is installed via a Chrome extension. So if you just go to Sourcegraph Chrome extension, it's on the Chrome Web Store, and what that does is it injects some of the functionality of Sourcegraph, so jump to definition and hover over tooltips, into any place in GitHub where you're viewing code. So that includes both the pull request view and the kind of regular code browser.
Yeah, cool. That's very useful. So, other folks, any questions to be young? Now, there's a question in the chat. Does it work with GitHub only?
Does it work with GitHub?
Only, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that last word.
Yeah, the question is...
I have asked the question, so...
Oh, GitHub only, got it.
Yeah, GitHub only, or maybe like with GitLab or another, like similar solutions like GitHub.
Yeah, so it works with GitLab and Bitbucket, but right now that support is only for kind of enterprise deployments. We hope to have that up for public code soon. But right now for open source code, GitHub is the only one that we support out of the box.
I had another question. Is there a server component to this other than GitHub? Is there another server in the background doing something, or is it all done in the Chrome extension?
No, there's a server component. So all the kind of intelligent features like the jump to definition and find references, that's powered by a collection of servers in the background that are running language servers that implement the language server protocol. That's an open source kind of editor plugin protocol that we use on the back end to do all the analysis of the code.
And then it looks like some, at least, of this is open source. Does that include the server components or only the browser plugin?
The web application is not open source at the moment, but we've tried to aggressively open source all the analysis code. So the language server that powers the kind of static analysis for Go is open source. That's the Go language server. You can find that on our GitHub page.
So in theory, if someone had a Go language only project and decided they wanted to host the server components themselves, they could do that entirely on open source.
No, so the web application, the UI is closed sourced at the moment.
Okay. So there is not a usable open source invocation of this. Okay, thanks.
Right.
I have a detailed question. Can this find implementers of an interface?
Right now, it doesn't distinguish between reference types. And so you would just have to scan through all the references that it finds. But that's something that we're looking to add.
Okay. Are there any special Go conventions to follow that would improve the results with Sourcegraph?
Improve the results, meaning?
There are some conventions for asserting that receivers implement interfaces and things like that. I guess I'm just asking if there are any Go source code conventions that would improve the results that Sourcegraph would give us. Like, do you have a conventions guide or anything like that, or?
No, right now it doesn't take advantage of conventions like that. We've kind of taken the tack of we're trying to support multiple languages on this, and so we've kind of gone the generic route right now. But as we kind of get more people on it, we're going to be looking at kind of language-specific things and taking advantage of things like that. So I assume you mentioned, or I assume that you're thinking of, if you have kind of like a concrete type that kind of does the assert, I implement this interface convention, then will you be able to see, callers of that interface when you click on a method of the concrete type? Is that the kind of the idea?
Yes.
Yeah, so right now the references would not show you, if you click on the method to the concrete type, it wouldn't show you references to the interface. But that's something that would be extremely useful and that I want personally. So hopefully we'll add that soon.
Okay, cool, thanks.
So I think I can take one more question and we'll be out of time. So any more questions, guys? No questions. All right, Beyank, that was awesome demo. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Cool. And the next agenda item, traditionally release updates. So for 1.6 release family, Dan Gillespie, are you with us?
Yeah, hi everyone. How's it going? So unfortunately, yesterday we decided that we had to block the release and delay it until Monday. The reasons for that are there's still release blockers that are in the milestone. A few of them came up yesterday and were raised, so we had to block that. And also we were having.
Hey Dan, could you move closer to the microphone?
Yeah, sure. Is that better?
Much, thank you.
Okay. So we also had issues getting a cleared upgrade test signal. We're having test timing out. We're trying to resolve that either by fixing the bug or disabling the test. We tried a fix yesterday, it did not appear to work, so we need to try another fix today. So our goal is for Monday, if everyone could just please look at the issues that are above, and if there's anything you can do to help out on them, that would be great. And that really would be the best way to make sure that everything goes out. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you, Dan. So community, we're close to the release, so it's time to have all hands on board helping. All right, for 1.5 release family, Marcin Wielgus. I'm not sure if Marcin is with us. Probably not, right?
He is not. That is correct. Just updating from his notes.
All right, so 1.5.5 released on March 21st, 22nd with a single security patch for pod security policy. So that would be all for 1.5 family. 1.4 release family, Jess Frazel, are you with us? All right, yeah, sorry.
There haven't been any more cherry picks onto that branch, but I haven't cut the release yet, so I'll probably do it like tomorrow. If there's anything urgent, like give me the.
All right, thank you. SIG updates, another traditional agenda item. So today we have SIG network, but I'm not sure if it was Casey Davenport or someone else. So Casey, are you with us?
This is Dan Williams. I'll be handling
all right, Dan Williams. Okay, please go ahead.
So specifically for 1.6, we don't have any gigantic items landing for 1.6. It's been a lot of cleanup. Specifically, network policy was not advanced to full version 1 for 1.6 yet because there are a few small issues to work through. Although there are vendor plugin implementations that do implement network policy as it's currently specified, and there are multiple implementations there. So we're continuing to work through that. Hopefully for 1.7 that will hit version 1 officially. And there are also various other small fixes for network plugin driver bugs and some interop issues with CNI plugins and such. And then there's also an effort going on to verify that a lot of the vendor network plugins are working correctly with the new release, specifically around pod network teardown. So that's about it for 1.6. In general, we are working on multi-networking, which basically means multi-homed pods could be on a couple of different IP networks at the same time if they wanted to. And there's also IPv6 has come back in the past couple of weeks, and that's ramping up again to try to figure out what we need to do to get Kubernetes IPv6 capable all the way from the pod itself up through ingress, the proxy, and health checks and other things. Host port handling is also still working on being generalized. That's kind of slowly progressing. Actually, I think one thing that did land for 1.6 has been quite a few kube proxy efficiency improvements, both around making sure that endpoint updates and other things coming from the API server are reduced, but then also specifically in the IP tables implementation of kube proxy, we've significantly reduced some of the busy work that it's doing and made it much more efficient, especially when there are a lot of IP tables rules. And then the last thing that we're discussing upstream that's gotten quite a bit of attention in the past month or so is DNS. And the question there is, if we move to multi-networking and we do have some measure of multi-tenancy for networks in Kubernetes, then we also need to start talking about DNS, and should DNS be segregated on a per tenant basis. And I think right now the general thought is that DNS would be per namespace if you're running a multi-tenant type cluster. So that's general update on all the issues. Again, not a ton of stuff and new features for 1.6, but we kind of knew that going into it already since we were working on cleaning things up. Any questions?
Where did we land on the whole teardown breaking change in terms of expecting to handling errors and sending teardowns for pods that were not brought up?
Yep, there were two distinct issues there. The first one, just a second here, let me think about it. Yeah, okay. So two distinct issues there. The first one sort of perversely was because the CNI plugin was not, the CNI driver was not correctly reporting status. And so Kubelet would actually schedule pods before the CNI plugin had been
That one was
installed.
fixed. Yeah.
Yep, that one did get fixed, and that was actually causing the teardown issue and the failures, because in between when the pod setup would happen, then the CNI network config file would be installed, and Kubelet would see that, and then it would have a plugin to call on teardown. So it's kind of a race condition there. So anyway, the particular cause of that issue has been fixed. That got merged, and right now plugins are working on attempting to have kind of like a safe delete. A number of those plugins have been updated. I know Weave has been updated. I'm pretty sure Calico has been updated as well. Most of the upstream CNI plugins from the official CNI project, those have also been updated, and there's been another release for those. So I think there's only a couple of vendor plugins that might need to be updated still. And there is a document linked in that issue that is tracking the progress of which plugins need to be updated still and which have been.
So, there was a quick Twitter exchange on that this morning, and to users, this looks like a breaking change because we're essentially forcing users to upgrade their plugins.
Okay, could you describe why not to get too deep into it, but could you describe why it might be a breaking change if we have already addressed the underlying cause, which was Kubelet calling delete when it had not called add already?
Well, so the breaking change is I upgrade to 1.6, and I also have to upgrade my CNI plugins. That's a breaking change.
That should not be the case. I think the only reason why it was the case and why it came up was because of the Kubelet bug where it would call teardown when it had never called add. And so now that we fixed that,
okay, that one got fixed. Okay.
Yeah, there should not be other bugs at this point. And
okay, cool. Okay, so that one got fixed. So old CNI plugins should work then.
Yes, the intention with the CNI spec upgrade, which a lot of people are moving to as well, was that old plugins should always be compatible. And since Kubernetes has not jumped up to that new specification version, the CNI project expects that everything will work seamlessly without upgrading either side of the component if you choose to.
Very cool. And then we can figure
I think we're good on this.
Forward for next releases, all that. Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
I had one other quick question about the performance improvements you guys released in 1.6. Is there a blog post or a summary somewhere of before and after that we could, if we're interested in the details there?
There isn't a blog post on that, but I guess for the moment, if you take a look at the Git commits and package proxy IP tables, almost all of the recent commits are performance related. But we could potentially work on something describing what we've done and doing before and after.
I was particularly curious about the actual performance improvements as opposed to the code changes that were made. Did anyone measure the improvement?
Yeah, we have some ad hoc measurements, but you're right, it would be good to get some actual firm ones. I know I work for Red Hat, and I know that we've done a whole bunch of internal performance performance measurements. So we might be able to sanitize some of those numbers and disclose them. But other than that, we could certainly work on trying to get some of those, and that'd probably be a good thing to advertise for the 1.6 release or soon after.
Thanks.
Yeah, good point. Thanks.
Any other questions to Dan? All right, John. So thank you, Dan, for the update. So we still have plenty of time. We don't have other SIG updates scheduled, but maybe there are volunteers to provide some updates from the SIGs that we haven't heard for a long time, maybe. Any volunteers?
I just have one quick thing for SIG cluster ops. We're resetting our cadence. So we're going to be skipping the meeting next week and then resume the week following. So that'll be publicized on the mailing list and whatnot, but I just want to give people a heads up.
All right, thank you. I think it's a case for many SIGs to skip the next week's meetings, right? It's a KubeCon week.
Yeah, so as notices go, the Kubernetes community meeting is not happening next week and will only happen on April 6th if we have not had the 1.6 release happen. So right now it looks like 1.6 is on schedule for next week, so we should not expect to have meetings on either the 30th or the 6th.
Correct. All right, plenty of time. I really hope that the last agenda item will not eat up all 30 minutes. So let's proceed to the last one. It's actually, well, it's not the last one. There's still face-to-face meetings. So Brandon Burns, are you with us? A governance meeting report and the developments around?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can hear you good.
Cool. Yeah, so we had a governance meeting on Monday, a sort of ad hoc governance meeting. It was attended by, I think, about 20 people from a variety of different places. We started out, I guess I sent a summary to the Kubernetes dev mailing list. So if people want the details and the link to the recording of the meeting, Sarah recorded the meeting and Jason Dumars took notes, so the details are there. But I wanted to summarize a little bit for folks what we talked about. You know, I think we talked to start with about the fact that the community survey data that I presented a few weeks back really, I think, clearly illustrates that our decision-making process at the project level is ad hoc and inscrutable to many people, and we need to do a better job sort of formalizing that. To that end, we nominated or decided that 5 people would form up sort of the bootstrapping committee that is going to try and work on developing this process. Those 5 people were myself, Joe Beta, Tim Hawken, Brian Grant, and Clayton. Subsequently, there was discussion on the mailing list thread that we would like to extend that to 7 people. So there are nominations for 2 community members with an eye towards trying to perhaps find voices of people who have not necessarily deep experience in Kubernetes, but have deep experience in open source and open source communities to sort of add a bit of breadth of experience, since for a lot of us on that 5 list, the deepest we've gone in an open source community is the Kubernetes community. So try to get some other perspectives. The tasks that have been set forth for us to go through and effectively ratify are one, which is the pull request that Brian has out already, effectively describing what we have currently, so that we have a document that describes to people what the current state of affairs is. And then 2 new documents, one which is a description of effectively classifying decisions. I think the primary classification will either be a SIG level decision or a project level decision, although it's possible that we will come up with another category. And the process by which, or the criteria by which we determine what is which, and escalation and that sort of thing. If the SIG believes it's a SIG level decision, but the project level believes that it's a project level decision, how we can resolve those things. And then the other piece of material that we're going to process, that we're going to develop, is how decisions are made. So one is to decide what does a decision mean, what kind of a decision is it, and then how do we make these decisions. Those are the 3 things. They'll be developed. We're going to get together face-to-face in early April, I believe, and they will be developed, put out to the community for community comment. We really had a focus on trying to time bound this. So because I think one of the challenges so far has been that these discussions have sort of gone on and on and on and on and on. So we're going to time bounce both the time to develop the document as well as the time to vote on the or get community feedback and vote on the document at 1 week to develop and 1 week for feedback as well. So I think that basically summarizes it. Does anyone else who's in the meeting want to add anything else?
One thing that I would add is this committee that we're forming to build these first processes is self-destructing. So we're not actually defining a governance body. We're defining a path to governance bodies. And that is all this group's charter is, because there's been some concern that we were anointing the same group to make decisions without more ratification from the community, et cetera.
Yeah, that's sort of why I tried to indicate with bootstrapping, but yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, guys, any questions, any comments? Everyone is fine with this process, or there are still some doubts, or anyone wants to come up?
So the action item here, just to be sort of like loud and clear, is please nominate folks for being part of this self-destructing bootstrapping committee by sending names to Sarah. I don't know if that came through clearly.
Right, and there was a deadline that we set for that, right? What was the deadline? Joe, what was the deadline?
I think it was tomorrow. I don't know, but Sarah, you can
it was tomorrow.
if you want.
Yeah, it's tomorrow, and there's no much time really left. So, yeah.
So I think one thing to add in terms of the nominations and sort of what the committee was looking for is really diversity of experience, or maybe people that are not as necessarily immersed in the gory details of the project, so that they can bring some fresh viewpoints, or people who have experience with large-scale projects, not necessarily Kubernetes, so we can avoid some of the well-known anti-patterns that start to happen when you have this many people working on the same project at one time.
Yeah, indeed. I would open people to nominate folks who are perhaps have never interacted with Kubernetes before, but have deep experience in some other open source project, if you know those people and you think they're interested.
All right, so can we assume that is enough discussion for this? Looks like yes. So we're close to the end of the meeting, unfortunately or fortunately. So the remaining stuff is so actually there's a KubeCon week next week, right? So Sarah already told you that there will be no community meeting, and also no meeting in 2 weeks from now. Also, there are face-to-face meetings organized for the SIGs, and I think there are two different lists for those meetings. So there's one provided by CNCF, and there's another one which is linked in this meeting agenda, and it's fairly empty. So it would be good if all SIG leads would put their SIGs meeting time and place. And also, I think this is last minute addition from Caleb. So we're going to have 1.6 retrospective, and there's a survey prepared for the best time. So the survey link is also in the agenda document. So everyone, please go and vote for the best time for you. And the deadline is 27th of March. But I guess it will be also sent to the Kubernetes dev as a reminder.
I have one note regarding this forum for 1.6 retrospective. Can I ask the poster of this forum to prepare like the checkboxes with multiple choices? Because if people may have like different choices, when it would be great to have retrospect, not the single one. So it would be great to have multiple choices.
Yeah, good point. I think there's this standard, there's this doodle tool which gives you multiple choices, so it's easier to sync across many people, right? Yeah. So the question or request is to make it multiple choice, not one choice. All right, that was the last formal point of the agenda. So do we have any closing remarks or questions, whatever?
I would just address Fernand's question in the chat, saying that that's probably a better question to go ask in Slack on the Minikube channel there, and that will get you a quicker answer, I think, than here.
All right. Yeah, Fernand Galliana. Yeah, I also think the Slack dev channel would be better. Yeah, we usually don't solve technical issues during this meeting. It's all nice and easy. All right, good people of Kubernetes. Looks like the meeting is over. So see you in 3 weeks, hopefully, because we will have 1.6 on time. Thank you very much.
And in Berlin.
And in Berlin.
And in Berlin, of course, and face to face in Berlin, of course. We want to have you as much as possible in Berlin. So. All right, thank you. Safe travels. Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas.
My pleasure.